Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we have now lived through 1 year of war, over 400 days of hostages being held in Gaza. 1 year since the firm belief that Israel is a safe place for people of the Jewish faith was shaken to its core. October 7 was a brutal shock for all of us. Not only because we have German citizens among those taken hostage or killed on that day, but because the security of the State of Israel is paramount for us, for Germany. It is part of our raison d'etat. But what does this mean in these times? It means that Israel has the right to defend itself against ongoing attacks, and that we have to say so even when this is not the easy choice. However, it also means that self-defense has to comply with international humanitarian law. Why? Because international law is another lesson from the past. It has become part of our national DNA as well. And international law is also protecting the state of Israel. But Israel understandably relies more on its own strengths. Its security also greatly benefits from partners, neighbors, and friends. And as a friend, allow me to make a specific point on the humanitarian situation in Gaza. International law stipulates the humanitarian access must be guaranteed at all times. The Israeli government has announced to, and I quote, flood Gaza with humanitarian assistance. But it did not follow up. What we see instead are terrible images from Gaza. People are living in unimaginable conditions. I'm under no illusion about Hamas' role in all of this. Hamas started this war, and it could end it within a day by releasing the hostages and ending the fight. But Israel also could end this war now. If you ask me, it should be our shared priority to secure the release of the hostages and to boost humanitarian assistance for Gaza. At this point, a ceasefire would not be a very high price to pay. Without a ceasefire, there will be no end of the dying, and the suffering will continue, the suffering of the hostages and their families, and the suffering of the families in Gaza. Without a ceasefire, the IDF might be stuck there for a long time. None of this will bring about lasting security for the state of Israel. After the end of the successful military campaign, Israel needs a day-after plan for Gaza. What should it be? How can we make sure that Gaza will never be a threat to Israel? By giving Gazans, and indeed all Palestinians, a perspective for the future. The prospect of a self-determined life without war, without Hamas, but also without Israeli occupation or settlements. There are rather good ideas around how to organize security, humanitarian assistance, and basic governance for the immediate future. In the long term, in my view, addressing the conflict is key for the security of Israel. How will Israel organize its relation with Palestinians? I know this is a difficult question requiring a serious debate in Israeli society. And ultimately, it is your choice. We have a few suggestions here. As you know, Germany fully stands behind the idea of a two-state solution. We are under no illusions here. It is certainly not easy. Is it even a good solution? Churchill might have said, it is the worst solution, except all the others. Think about it. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, we deeply care about Israel. And this is why we would like to help you to build lasting security well beyond the politics of the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Seibert, for your talk, for this talk, and for your constant support also for the families of the hostages, and for your very normative stance for liberal democratic values that are shared between Germany and Israel, and also Europe and Israel. With the elections of Trump to be the next president of the United States, we expect for a major change in world politics and geopolitics. And since Trump is very unexpected, his elections has unexpected implications on Europe and mostly Ukraine, and on us in the Middle East, Israel and the Palestinians, Iran and the whole neighborhood. So I want to start with Europe before we turn home to Israel. And among others, the EU is forged by crisis. So never waste a good crisis has become a worn slogan in Europe. And as we would like to talk today about strategies of hope in that new Western constellation, what hope do you see for Germany, for Europe, and for Ukraine?
Big question. First of all, I think I have to agree with you. The election of Donald Trump will shake things up everywhere, also in Europe. What we have learned from his first term is indeed that he's very unpredictable. So people who now bank on him could be disappointed. We don't really know where that is going. What we have in Europe is a crisis that predates the Trump presidency. And this is, I would say, generally speaking, a crisis of liberal democracy. We have in some key countries in Europe parts of the population that doubt liberal democracy and its ability to solve the citizens' problems. Mm-hmm. And I think this is what's at stake. We must show that liberal democracy and not strongman systems and not authoritarian systems, that liberal democracy is the best system to solve the challenges, to tackle the challenges that we all face. This is, I think, what we're fighting. In terms of hope, I put great hope in a process that has started a couple of years ago, and this is Europe taking more responsibility and taking charge of its own security and defense needs, working together more, cooperating better, becoming more serious, I think, about also applying its power. This has started a couple of years ago. I think it's making progress, and I'm pretty sure that the Trump presidency will speed up this process. It will show us that we need to be also confident in what we can, but also to get our act together even more.
So we'll have to see whether Europe is able to get its act together, and also maybe what implications that will have to our region. I'm not sure. I see a big split between the unity that Europe has versus Ukraine to support Ukraine, and the very cacophony and disagreement that they have with what's going on. The past year was very harsh to the camp that believes in political solutions and in peace. So hope, which is also a realistic hope, is very much needed more than ever. So where do you see any glimpses of options for hope nowadays, or in the long term for Israel and perhaps in the wider region?
Well, first of all, after the horrendous experience of the 7th of October, I can understand that psychologically, mentally, people in Israel are in a very bleak atmosphere and find it very hard to believe that things could improve. And this is, of course, also true for the Palestinians, who look at tens of thousands of Palestinians killed in Gaza and who also lose the hope that things could one day be better. I think it is the job and the task of political leadership to provide that hope and to say, no, there can be another future for our country and for our region. There can be. It is not going to be happening next year or next week, but there can be a path towards an Israel that lives peacefully and in security, side by side with its Arab neighbor states. And how do we get there? Rather than the narrative that very often I hear that we, the Israelis, are doomed to live by the sword forever. I mean, there's no doubt that in this country and in this region, you need a very strong military, and you have it, fortunately. But real peace and real security will not come through military prowess alone. It will come through regional alliances, through treaties, through what you have with Egypt and Jordan. And this I find, if I may say that, I'm a foreigner, I'm a diplomat, it's not my country, I know that, But still, I find that lacking in the public discourse.
And we have a lot to learn from Europe and from Germany after World War II in that sense. So what role do you think that Europe or the European Union and Germany in its center can play to enhance security and stability in our region? And do you think that you could go forward without the blessing or support of the United States?
Well, first of all, of course, it's always beneficial if Europe acts side by side and in agreement with the United States, which is the situation we've had these past years. There was a very, very close cooperation between our foreign minister and the American Secretary of State, our chancellor and the American president, and this goes for other Europeans too. So I think, by and large, this is beneficial because it increases our clout here, of course. We don't, as I said, I don't want to speculate what the Trump influence in this region will be. I mean, he was elected by millions of people with a rather isolationist outlook. So I'm not sure that everyone who's now, thanking God for the election of Mr. Trump in this country will get what he or she thinks. But we don't know that. Europe, of course, needs to be, as I said, self-confident. We need to try to be as united as we can. We have to be self-confident because we are we're a strong economic power. We're a strong trading partner to this region. And yes, I think also in terms of security, we need to possibly be willing to take on more responsibilities. We have not achieved everything that we wanted to achieve. I think we had a major impact, not just us, but also the Americans and some other Europeans, in at least opening the doors to humanitarian aid that opened very slowly at the beginning. And I think the constant urging from Germany, France, America, this has achieved something. We're absolutely not where we want to be, but I think we have had some influence and some effect in what we do.
And maybe we should also note that the European Union helps the Palestinian Authority to maintain its financial stability, and that also preserve the options, the political options for the future, and helping to keep stability also in the West.
This is important because when I speak as the representative of a country that is a friend of Israel and has Israel's security at heart. And I think Israel's security is also determined by the level of stability you have in the West Bank. If you turn that upside down, if you increase the tensions, it will lead to more IDF soldiers having to keep the stability there. It will lead to more loss of life. It will lead to more risk, which I'm not. I'm stating the obvious. I'm stating the way that international law looks at the state of Israel. And our commitment, our very strong and staunch and reliable commitment to the state of Israel, its existence, its security, is to the state of Israel in the borders of 1967. And I will add also to the state of Israel in its as a liberal democracy, as it's enshrined in its Declaration of Independence. We are the connection we have, the very strong friendship we feel for Israel, of course, stems from our history. Of course, this is always there. But it also stems from joint values. The International Court of Justice has just a couple of months ago issued an opinion on the settlements and the occupation. And it very clearly says that both are illegal under international law. So
I'll take
obviously,
you on that,
as a state that believes in the importance of international law, we cannot support the occupation or the settlements.
And this is exactly what I want to, next point that I want to reach. No, that's perfect. So on the 12th of November, just a couple of weeks ago, you posted on X, and again, I quote, the demand by Minister Smotrich to apply sovereignty over the West Bank is an open call for annexation. We strongly condemn this announcement, which threatens the stability of the entire region. And our experts in Mitvim say that the strategic security achievements of Israel, among others, are the peace agreement with Egypt and with Jordan, and that annexation would endanger even those basic things that maybe we take for granted here. So my question is, what can Germany and Europe do to stop annexation? And especially when the EU is so divided over what's going on in the region and the war in Gaza. And I'll add another question that following normalization in the past few years, the European Union has strengthened its relations with the Gulf countries. And can Europe perhaps join forces with Arab moderate countries to counter annexation? Do you see that nexus taking place? Can Europe act on its own? Should it cooperate with Arab moderate countries on annexation?
Well, what you just quoted, annexation is a clear breach of international law. This is not the German opinion or the European opinion. This is the opinion of international law, of which we are great supporters. So this needs to be taken seriously. What can we do? I think as friends of Israel, we can urge, we can point out the very serious consequences this would have for Israel. We don't want Israel's position in the international arena deteriorating further. I mean, Israel, and this is a phenomenon really, as the state that was attacked and had 1,200 of its citizens massacred on October 7th, now over a year later is in a worse situation in the international arena than it was before. It pains me very much to say that. And I'm just afraid that if these plans go ahead, and I think we should take Mr. Smotrich very seriously, because it's obvious that his ministry is making preparations and has been making preparations for some time. If this goes ahead, I think the international consequences for Israel will be very severe. You are in a better situation now than you were 5 or 10 years ago, because you can, besides Jordan and Egypt, you have more countries that you can speak to, that you can rely on, that help you, that you can exchange with. And this is I think this is very valuable. But these countries will certainly not go along with an annexation. This is not going to happen. So again, there'll be a cooling of relations. I can't imagine how that would in any way improve the situation of Israel. And in that sense, I think it would be a real deterioration of your security situation. And I personally don't want to see that happen. Germany doesn't want to see that happen. The responsibility of every generation of leaders, and this is true for the Palestinians as well as for the Israelis, to start that hope again and to not give in to this feeling that in this region you are doomed to war forever. I think this is how I feel about it and how Germany feels about it.
Thank you so much with ending our talk with glimpses of hope.
Yeah, I mean, if I can say one thing, I mean, what gives me hope is that I meet so many people who take things into their own hand, maybe not in the big picture, but they do things. They build the bridge to the other side. They go and help the Palestinian olive farmers who are under threat, rabbis for human rights, organizations like that. That gives me hope. And in the absence of a huge, big peace process, which we haven't got at the moment, I think we need to, work with those seedlings of hope and try to keep them alive and keep them growing.
This is exactly what we call evolving peace, and we would like to support.
And you have an ally in us.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.